Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're running 5 minutes late already, which is not a good start for my first session chairing, moderating this session. So welcome to Europe's AMR chessboard, Moves That Matter. I'm Suzanne Edwards. I lead work tracking developments and facilitating country exchange on market incentives for antibacterials at the Global AMR R&D Hub. At the heart of our session today lie the new directive and regulation that together form the pharma package, the most transformative overhaul in over 2 decades of the EU's general pharmaceutical legislation, politically agreed just months ago. We're privileged to be accompanied today by the European Commission's policy architects, member state leaders handling the transposition of that law, international law, and national rollout, and industry experts who will be innovating under these new rules. We're going to explore together what this means for innovative European companies, for public health, and critically, for progress against AMR. The pharmaceutical package, the general pharmaceutical legislation, governs across all pharmaceuticals in Europe with measures across the whole pharmaceutical life cycle. But I think for everybody here at the conference today, and perhaps also in this room, it's the inclusion of not one, but 2 incentives, post-market rewards for critical new successfully approved antibacterials that perhaps represent the most interest for the panel today. The 2 incentives, I'm sure you all know, it's a world-first transferable exclusivity voucher and potentially also the first attempt at a transnational subscription model that's voluntary in nature. These were extremely welcome developments that came almost a Christmas present at the end of last year. But this is not all. This actually rounds off 5 years of progress, championed largely within and by the G7 around the world. In 2020, England initiated its pilot subscription model. It was also the year that Pasteur was submitted for the first time. 2021 saw pricing and reimbursement reform for these products begin in both France and Germany. 2023, Japan established its pathway to support these products, and Canada secured the budget to support its pilot program. 2024 saw the EU pilot and also Italy securing additional funds for its mechanism. These efforts collectively built on the work for the previous 5 years, 2015 to 2020, which really marked some of the key international push vehicles being put in place. I think they've been very present at the conference in the last few days, CARB-X, GARD-P, and the AMR Action Fund. Together, these represent the chess pieces that we'll be exploring with our panelists today. So what's the session going to look like? We're going to try for 3 rounds. I'm going to start by introducing and hearing a brief update by each of our 4 panelists. We're going to then do a second round where we explore a little bit deeper. And the final round will be a rapid round asking the panelists to gaze into the future. Hopefully, it's going to leave us some time also to take questions from the audience. So, with no further ado, let's head straight to the architects of the legislation themselves. Alexandra Opalska, policy officer at DG for Health and Food Safety, DG Sante, at the European Commission, working on medicines, policy, authorization, and monitoring. She focuses on AMR, COVID-19 policy, and pharmacovigilance. Alexandra is a trained pharmacist, and she's completing her PhD on AMR policies. Welcome, Alexandra. Thank you for joining us today. Perhaps you could kickstart the panel by providing an overview of the AMR provisions in the new pharmaceutical legislation.
Good morning to all. Good morning also from my side. And first of all, thank you so much for inviting the Commission to discuss these important topics and to provide you the overview of AMR provisions. I will share my my slides. If you can just tell me if you see them, that would be lovely. Super, excellent. So, as I mentioned, I will give you a short, brief overview of the AMR provisions that are included in the pharma package. And of course, there are, let's say, two pillars of those kind of measures. First one are incentives, probably the most important and the most interesting topic for you. And then there are appropriate use measures. So let me start with the AMR voucher. For those that are not aware, what is it? The voucher allows a developer of a novel breakthrough antimicrobial to receive this kind of voucher and to benefit of additional regulatory data protection. And it can be used on its own, like for the portfolio of any other medicines that this company, the developer, has, or it can be sold to another company. We created, of course, different conditions to this reward. It can be used only once. There are conditions with regards to supply, with regards to transparency, so the public funds that are received for development. And of course, you may be aware that member states, they were kind of worried about the huge cost for healthcare systems. So there is also the blockbuster clause. And this provision, the voucher, is valid for 5 years. And this provision has a sunset clause. So it means that we can give up to 5 vouchers for antimicrobial breakthrough antimicrobials, hopefully innovative antibiotics, or we see how to reflect after 15 years. The Commission is also obliged to have a report, to create a report and evaluate the effectiveness of this measure, because let's remember, we are the first one, as Susan already mentioned, in the world to have this kind of powerful incentive. So we need to test it and see how it goes. So we need to, as a Commission, we need to have a report about this after 2 vouchers that we grant, or every 5 years. Then the second part of, let's say, incentives, we have this voluntary subscription model that also Suzanne has already mentioned in her introduction. What is it? It's a voluntary joint member states action. We award public contracts, and it is based on the existing framework, so the Public Procurement Directive. And here the scope is any antimicrobial. So we don't have this kind of specific conditions as we put for innovative, for the priority antimicrobials, but here any antimicrobial can play a role, can take part of this subscription model. And as what is it? It is kind of multi-year subscription model with the linkage or partial the linkage. There are also supply condition, but probably the first question that comes to your mind is what's the Commission role here? And we have to provide a guideline on competence, on methodology, how it would work in practice. We can also organize specific meetings on the request of member states where different regulators can come together, and also European medicines agencies that are important and are aware about the AMR challenge. And the last thing that I wanted to mention before we go into discussion, they are measures on the prudent use, because let's not forget that no non-incentive is good enough to tackle AMR by itself. And the inappropriate use is still the major driver of AMR. Therefore, it is essential that we have this kind of other measures that will safeguard the new antimicrobials. So we have the prescription status across Europe. We have environmental measures. We have different educational material to educate also not only European citizens, but also healthcare professionals. We have stewardship plan for antimicrobial resistance. And we have also the package size. So I think I will stop here because we have only limited time, and I look forward for the discussion. Thank you.
Is the mic? Okay. Thank you, Alexandra. That was a really helpful kickstart to the session. We're going to head now to a member state. So Cesar Hernandez has been Director General overseeing the Spanish health system's core health and pharmacy services since 2022. He previously spent over a decade at the Spanish regulator as head of human medicines, following a clinical and academic career in one of Spain's foremost teaching hospitals in Madrid, where he also served as deputy medical director. Unfortunately, Cesar was unable to join us in person today, but kindly recorded his update for us on what the GPL means for EU member states and what Spain will continue to champion nationally.
Hello to everyone, and first of all, apologies for not being able to be present in the meeting. I will try to summarize the Spanish position on this issue. For that, I will try to share only 2 slides, not more. Well, first of all, I'm Cesar Hernandez. I represent the General Directorate of the Common Portfolio and Pharmacy at the Spanish Ministry of Health, so the part of price and reimbursement for medicines. Well, what is the general background for Spain? First of all, we have a long-standing and active national action plan against AMR, which is called PRAN, which brings together all the relevant stakeholders under this One Health approach. Second, we have adopted a pharmaceutical industry strategy that involves 5 ministries plus the Economic Office of the Prime Minister, which explicitly recognize AMR as a strategic priority area, so an area that should be developed under this strategy. Third, Spain is also undertaking a deep reform of its core pharma legislation, and we incorporate, along with other issues and topics, specific provisions related to AMR, both regarding reimbursement of medicines and special measures to allow them to continue in the market. At the European level, Spain supports initiatives that strengthen both development of new antimicrobials, but also the preservation and availability of the existing ones. However, I would like to remark that it is essential to ensure unified, coherent, and balanced framework for push and pull incentives, whether at the national level and EU level, and that given the diversity of working groups currently addressing AMR-related measures, we would like to underline the importance of the coordination and alignment. Regarding the Spanish position on the general pharma legislation that is ready to be adopted, and focusing on these specific points on AMR, we support the possibility of establishing the voluntary subscription models for the joint procurement of priority antimicrobials, provided that, but this is, I think, natural, the national competence regarding price and reimbursement is respected. The model guarantees genuine the linkage total partial between revenue and volume, continuous supply and quantities are ensured, and the economic evaluation methodology is transparent, evidence-based, and consistent with the principles of budgetary sustainability. So nothing surprise from the point of view of the price and reimbursement competent authority. And regarding the transferable data exclusivity voucher, we recognize that it's an objective that should be covered by a mechanism, and although it was not our preferred mechanism in the beginning, or should be complemented with another mechanism, I mean, we are ready to work on how to implement it, and having advantage of the positive aspects that vouchers have, and also to avoid those negatives that may also imply its application. And that's all for this specific topic in the session. Thank you.
That's great to hear directly from a member state. And turning back to the stage now, and Anna, fresh from your previous session highlighting the Horizon calls. Anna Burgos is currently acting head of a unit in HERA 2, the unit dealing with intelligence gathering, analysis, innovation, financing, and access to medical countermeasures. Anna's a pharmacist by background and has been working in the Commission for more than 10 years. She's been in HERA since its creation. In the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, in the implementation of the medical devices legislation and the development of the EU for Health financing program for crisis preparedness and response. Anna, so we heard from Alex on DG Sante's work driving the legislative reform, but DG HERA launched in 2021 as the EU's dedicated Health Emergency Preparedness and Response Authority, is going to play a key role in operational delivery. Evolving from the COVID-19 Health Crisis Task Force, HERA has prioritized AMR from day one. So it would be great if you could overview DG HERA's current actions for us on AMR. Thanks.
Is this, yeah, it's working. No need for a button. Thank you very much, Susan. And I'm not sure if you have the pointer for the slides. And I already apologize because for those that were in the previous talk, probably you have seen a lot of this, but I'm really happy to be here and being able to discuss with these fantastic speakers today. So just to give you a little bit of background of why HERA was created, Susan already pointed a little bit to this. So HERA was created as a commission, an European Commission service in the aftermath of COVID-19. And we were given a budget of 6 billion to be spent until 2027. And our mandate is really on medical countermeasures. So the medical countermeasures, it is not only medicines, of course, it is also diagnostics, medical devices, SOHO products, is anything that might be used to really address a serious cross-border health threat. So as you can see in the slide, we have an end-to-end approach covering all the value chain. And it is not only on products, but it is also coming a step before, that is the intelligence gathering and the analysis of the information in order to be able to prioritize and to know where we have to really focus our actions. So as Susan said, we identified AMR as a priority since the beginning. So we have published in July last year the MCM strategy. So this is really the Commission strategy on how we are going to bring medical countermeasures to the market. And one very important point of this strategy was the threat prioritization assessment report, which has been published at the beginning of the year. In this report, you can really see how do we consider the different threats. For you, the most important one is, of course, AMR. And you can see how we have used the assessment of the priorities by our colleagues in WHO into the EU context. So our main priorities are pathogens, carbapenem resistance, and cephalosporins. And we have also assessed what are really the gaps on innovation and access, and we also tackle supply. At global level, as said, we support WHO also in establishing priorities in order to ensure that the limited resources that we have can be used really in catalytic actions and can be really effective. So what is really our role, and I will finish with this slide, it is really to cover, as I said, the whole process of developing of medical countermeasures. In the case of AMR countermeasures, we cover therapeutics, diagnostics, vaccines, and we could cover also other products or therapies like phages, as I mentioned in the previous talk. So as part of, apart from the prioritization, we also cover surveillance capacities, because for us it's really essential that there's enough surveillance capacities in member states and also globally. So we are working to strengthen genomic sequencing capacities and also wastewater surveillance capacities. We do push funding mainly through partners like CARBEX and GARPI, but also we have specific calls and specific funding for specific formulations. We have worked in the past on pool incentives, so we have tried to launch the first revenue guarantee that would cover all or most of the countries in Europe. And we also work in access, mainly in LMICs through the Secure initiative that we support with WHO and GARPI. but also we have extensive experience in joint procurement and also analysis of supply on demands of medical countermeasures, and we also do stockpiling. With regard to diagnostics, I wanted to mention that it is not only that we target specific diagnostics for specific pathogens and fungi, but we also are trying to get there for a more platform approach, and we are also supporting point-of-care metagenomics diagnostics, and we have high hopes that with all these operational activities we can really make a change. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks for that overview, Anna. So Lucas Rott works as Associate Director at IFPMA, which represents the innovative pharmaceutical industry at the global level. He's responsible for the organization's work on AMR, shaping key industry positions and reports while representing pharma in expert forums like WHO, CGD, and ourselves, the Hub. And I know that your input that you give us into our pull incentive forum is always greatly appreciated by the member states. Luca, welcome. In my opening remarks, I highlighted that the past 5 years has brought steady progress in policy, nationally and collectively, even if the pace and scale hasn't always or yet met expectations. From a developer's viewpoint, how meaningful have these changes over the last 5 years been? Have we moved the needle?
Thanks, Suzanne, and good morning from my side as well. It's a day 2 morning session. It's always a bit of a gamble, but I think we've got a great audience here, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion. So, as you said in the beginning, Suzanne, the last 5 years, I mean, we've seen progress, right? We've seen political progress, we've seen technical progress. 5 years ago, maybe a bit more than that, there really wasn't anything, along the lines of a pull incentive, although the UK work was at that time well underway, and then of course the pilot kicked off, right, again, as you mentioned, and that's been followed by many other examples in different countries as well, and of course, the most recent addition to the ecosystem in the form of the GPL as well. So I think, in addition to that, one thing I would also mention as something that has played, I think, an important role in the last 5 years is the work that the AMR Action Fund, for example, has continued to do, and the investing role it's had. And I mentioned that also because, created in 2020, it's something that was originally envisioned by the IFPMA. It brought together 20 plus pharmaceutical companies investing, to tackle this challenge and supported the continued development of promising assets together with non-industry investors and also WHO as a technical partner. Again, I think in the last couple of years, although sparse, we have seen a few new approvals. We've seen, I think, meaningful progress as well in trying to get these new products to patients globally. Also, there's been concrete partnerships to that effect as well. And then sort of, reflecting on this, I mean, 2 years ago, and this is the slide that I'm showing here, we put together let's say, projection of what the future antibiotic pipeline might look like going forward, right? All the way up until 2033. And this is based sort of on 2 different scenarios. At the top is sort of the status quo, business as usual, right? No new funding, no new investment coming into the space. Whereas at the bottom, we explored via this research, what impact a full, effective pull incentive implementation in 2025 would have, right? And the difference is clearly, our start. The potential certainly is there, right? At the same time, in the same year, the AMR Industry Alliance published a report called "Leaving the Lab," right? It was, I think, very previously discussed in many different fora as well, but essentially, there are some concerning numbers in terms of the research ecosystem that are kind of, underlying here and present a fundamental challenge to the ecosystem, right? Since 1995, there's been an approximately 50% reduction in the research workforce in this space. The issue also is that many researchers that work in companies that then have ceased activity, and we know many such examples, right? As they switch careers, by the time they, of their second job change, very few actually still stay in the space, and that expertise is very hard to get back, right? So I think, at the same time, we're seeing, good progress across many countries. We are, here looking at unique policy solutions for unique market challenges that are, quite frankly, no easy feat, right? I think everybody recognizes that this is a challenging issue to solve. So in terms of the original question, have we moved the needle on antibiotic R&D? I think looking at the two scenarios here, right? I think there's certainly more work that we need to do, right? Including as the importance of building on this progress that we've seen to date. And the work that still needs to be done is of course very important, right? And I think really moving the needle on antibiotic R&D, will also be contingent on having this real line of sight and predictability towards really implementation at scale at the global level, right? And ideally, we do that as soon as possible in a kind of collective manner.
That's great. Thanks, Luca. I'm sure we're going to come back to this topic a little bit later. So if we can, we'd like to move back to Alex so we can delve a little bit deeper into the current situation. So Alexandra, the new incentives are going to be enabling companies to receive higher rewards for these successful products that check the boxes of critically needed new antibacterial. What concrete commitments does the Commission expect from industry in return for receiving some of these new incentives?
Yes, well, by putting forward this kind of powerful incentives, we have, I have to admit, big or even huge expectations from the industry. And probably it's not only about the Commission and member states or regulators, but I think most importantly, European citizens and patients. They need to have breakthrough, access to breakthrough innovative products that would help treatment, in particular, I think, for infections caused by antibiotic-resistant bacteria. So this incentives, and I mean the voucher, will provide, and Luca has already mentioned this, the predictability that stakeholders, especially SMEs that are probably there in the audience, frequently and repeatedly requested us to have. So at the same time, we will test this tool and see how to address also the business model that doesn't work, the usual pharmaceutical business model that doesn't work for antibiotics. So, of course, in return, the Commission would like to have and expects from industry to deliver truly innovative antimicrobials, in particular antibiotics, because also according to WHO and not only ECDC, this is the major threat, antibiotic resistance, with, of course, the conditions that I already highlighted about the supply, reliable supply, about the transparency of public funds, but also cost of development of antibiotics. And finally, all this must go hand in hand, of course, with appropriate use. And I think here industry has also a crucial role to play to educate healthcare professionals, to put forward the stewardship plans that will enable and increase awareness about AMR. So I think, I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. I think following on from that, I'd like to return to you, Luca. A similar issue, but perhaps the other side of the coin a little bit. What key principle would industry be looking for countries? I think this plays into this comment about stability and particularly sort of reflections on the GPL in this context.
Yeah, so I think in the context of sort of the last 5 years that we talked about, right, the added benefit of everything that's taken place and the discussions that we've had, we have a lot more clarity now on the scale of the challenge, what is needed and sort of what solutions can help us to get there, right? And so then, in terms of thinking about pull incentives at the global level, right, I think there are a couple of key principles that we can talk about, right? And in that sense, we would say that pull incentives at the global level, first and foremost, so to be impactful, right? They need to be effective. This is directly connected to sort of, having these individual models collectively add to the globally required value through proportionate contributions, right? By the G7 and the EU. Apologies. Understanding, of course, that different antibiotics might have different value ascribed to them. And this then also kind of bridges over into, the fact that they need to be appropriate. And this is, also about ensuring that appropriate use is supported via the pull incentive model, but also that, you have eligibility criteria that, take into account both current and likely future threats. And that the valuation frameworks that support these models, right, are also, robustly structured, clear, and also there's the importance of also, sustaining this over a longer period of time is also really important, which then bridges, I think, into something that we've seen come up in the conversation already a couple of times, which is the concept of predictability, right? We know that the R&D process is quite long. So, clearly these incentives should be sustained through a longer period of time. And ideally, the conversations would also take place early enough in clinical development to support continued investment decisions, right? Of course, pull incentives are contingent ultimately on success, on regulatory success. But to have that sort of, predictability along the way is also something that can be really, really helpful. What else can I add to this? I think, well, global alignment is also something that will be very important, right? Again, because we're talking about different models in individual markets, and that includes, for example, so clearly countries will have national priorities which may vary, and they're going to want to take that into account. But also taking into account, for example, the WHO priority pathogen list or regional, priority pathogen lists can help support that kind of alignment overall, right? And again, the global alignment piece could be ascribed to basically all the principles that I just mentioned, including predictability, right? Because when we're talking about different models that will intend to work together towards a common goal, lack of predictability can then have really a negative multiplicative effect across the different models. So it's really, really important, I think. And then in terms of the EU, this is a major step, right? This is essentially, the EU as an important region is moving forward with putting a pull incentive, into legislation, right? The TEV has been discussed for quite some time, the concept of it, right? But this is the first time that it's being implemented, and that I think is a really big milestone in itself. So we haven't seen the final text, but I think. The TEV itself, by design, directly connects also to the at least the aspect of appropriate use. That much is very clear, but also it's really well suited to kind of play into these principles themselves. I think going forward, and in the implementation stages, two things are probably going to be very, very important and critical. The first one being really striving for impact, for an effective incentive package that can meaningfully change the investment outlook. The EU, right, represents about a third of the GDP when you compare it to the G7 and the EU. We also heard yesterday in the opening session from Kevin about the numbers, right, and the 1.4 billion on average. And then on the predictability part, it's exactly what was also referenced again many times already, is that for example, currently the TEV is a time-limited measure, right? Lasting, I think I saw on the slide, it was 5 vouchers or 15 years. The question is what happens then, right? And how to really signal that long-term sustainable commitment on a continued basis. And furthermore, I think on the subscription model, right, it'll be very important also to further build out that in a way that is going to allow developers and investors to take that into the equation when making the decisions, right? It's going to be, which is going to mean questions like, how and which countries will participate, right? What are some of the finer details of the operational aspects? But again, in summary, I think here it's a really big step, and I think there's really good potential for the EU to send a strong signal. Not just to developers and investors, but also to other countries who are working on these models across the G7, right? And thus can really play an important, leadership role in kind of signaling this as a priority issue that needs to be solved.
Thank you, Luca. Just to sort of expand on what you were saying about predictability, this is a key topic of the group that we lead, this cross-country dialogue. I think the UK is the only example at the moment of a country that's been able to put a 10-year budget commitment on the table. Now we have the TEV at 15 years, but within national ministries of health, this is really difficult, right? Typically, they're working to 4-year budget cycles. In the case of Japan, it's a single-year budget cycle. It is very difficult at the national level to be putting these substantial long-term commitments on the table. Just a final point on the harmonization, right? This is another topic that we address in our group. How do we harmonize these initiatives across the world? Pharmaceutical markets are highly globally consolidated, but on the payer side, this is not the case. And perhaps something tangible for us to take away from the session is actually perhaps Europe could be a starting point for this conversation, right? Whether we, as the design details come out for the TEV and the voluntary subscription model, whether we can get the EU country individual national level models sort of stacking up and aligning with that, and then looking to global rollout as a second step. Anna. Focusing on pull incentives and building on HERA's experience with the revenue guarantee model and joint procurement processes. Can you give us a few more insights on these specific?
Yes, I think that colleagues mentioned a lot, but just to give you a little bit of the background where we were coming from, for us it was essential to tackle this issue, or try to tackle this issue, because for us it's an issue of health security. The fact that antibiotics are commercialized but are not accessed in all Europe, it is really a concern for us. So when the Council did a recommendation in 2023, giving the Commission, especially HERA, the role to look at this, we took it very seriously. And we started, of course, assessing what was there, the UK model, also the Swedish model, and we decided to go for the revenue guarantee. In Sweden, we were very in close contact with them. We realized that it was maybe the easiest model to be extended to the EU. And we were working very closely with member states, because for us it was essential that we would pick up an antibiotic that they really wanted in their territory. For us, it is essential that they are committed, the member states are committed to really go, the last mile to make all the competence, because they have the competence for price and reimbursement, and to ensure that they were really, really committed to put their part, which they are doing in any case, but to maybe try to speed up. And then we selected 3 antibiotics with them, and we realized that life was not as easy as it seemed. And we tried with the 3 companies, and we faced very different challenges. And I think that one thing, we cannot say, of course, everything that is a failure is a failure. But for us, it was very important to see that, there was a possibility to use the financing tools that we have to change them, or not change the rules, but really to try to find solutions, innovative ways of using the rules that we have to get there. So the problem now is that, of course, when you have a failure like this, you really need a time to take your lessons. So we have been discussing with member states very closely, with industry, and we really wanted to know where were the obstacles and the bottlenecks that each of the actors were finding because these investments are huge, and we really wanted to make sure that this time it would be right. The problem that we are finding is that, of course, everything is very complex, so we will not be able to solve everything. And now with the information that Alexandra has provided, of course, the Commission now, we have to implement the pharma revision, the pharma package. So for us, we are a little bit in a moment to wait and see. The Commission will have to support member states with these guidelines that Alexandra mentioned, and to really define how will be the new subscription model to be implemented through joint procurement. We believe that we are in a very good situation because we have long experience with joint procurement. We really want to use all the lessons learned that we get from this revenue guarantee trial that we did, and to try to make use of it, because it cannot be that it is lost now, even if we go for a subscription model that will be not linked to sales or partially linked to sales. But I think that my insights can be that this is not the most easiest problem to solve, but that we are extremely committed and that, we are just trying to make the right steps and prioritize the right actions at the right times. So
that's great. You've had a very steep learning curve in a very short time, I think it's probably fair to say. Okay, so moving to our final round now. Put a lot of pressure on the panelists, right, to do a very brief, I'm asking you to gaze into your crystal balls. I'd like to turn a little bit to the future for each of you. Alexandra, how do the new AMR pull incentives position the EU globally in the race to tackle AMR?
Yes, thank you for this question. I think you and also Luca has already mentioned that with the voucher and with the subscription model, we are becoming leaders. So with this kind of new creative tools, EU is positioning itself as a first mover among major jurisdictions. So it is very, very challenging, but very exciting times actually ahead of us, because we can set actually global standards. We can be a global standard setter, and hopefully the voucher and subscription model, they will work. They will provide solutions that we are expecting, and then other jurisdictions can also follow. But I think what also you mentioned that we've been discussing pull incentives for several years. And also this time, I think we could see as an added value because industry could prepare themselves and their business marketing strategies. And now it's time for implementation where we will see the results. And maybe I can briefly tell you about the timelines, because I'm sure that the audience is also looking forward what will happen next. So you will be really up to date, because in 2 days we have a meeting with the Council that will accept, hopefully, the final text. And then in the coming weeks, then the European Parliament will first discuss this within the specific committee, and then it will follow up with the parliamentary vote on the final text. And as a next step, we have the period of course, translation in each European language and publication in the EU journal that we hopefully be able to finalize in summer. So I think you mentioned that that was a Christmas present, when the political agreement there was. I think it's even Easter or summer present for industry. And we really hope that it will bring tangible solutions.
Thank you, Alexandra. Okay, so Cesar Hernandez from the Spanish Ministry, we asked him what he thought the next steps and perspectives on the likely interplay between the GPL and the national positions and actions would be. So we're going to hear again from Cesar now.
Well, regarding what is ongoing related to this aspect, I would like to share a final slide. Well, under the AMR plan up to 2027, we identify close collaboration with price and reimbursement authorities as a strategic approach. And we have involved the advisory board on pharmaceutical provision in analyzing the different incentive models and deployment in Spain that are more suitable for our situation. We also are evaluating financing approaches for strategic antibiotics whose consumption is inappropriate. We are exploring new pricing and financing models for antibiotics, both at the collective level, but also by our own, with the aim of improving access to strategic antimicrobials while promoting their appropriate use. We are implementing a roadmap aimed at enhancing the financing framework for strategic antibiotics. We are coordinating to ensure that the regulatory adaptation of formats and the review of financing mechanisms are directly connected, so we do not introduce any disturbance in the normal functioning of this. Together, the PRAN and the Directorate General for the Common Portfolio and Pharmacy are participating in the Work Package 9 on access of Handrai. We are also participating in the pool incentives working group at the G20 Global AMR Hub. And we are already reviewing all European and global work to identify the most suitable approaches for our national health system. And we are preparing also a national pilot in order to test the model that best fits the Spanish context in close coordination with the autonomous communities. As you know, that the health provision in Spain is highly decentralized in the regions. And that's all. Thank you.
That's great to hear from Cesar. I think regardless of the level at which the financial incentives get put in place, I think it's going to be imperative that countries actually continue to look at the antibiotic pathways that they have actually within their country. So it's great to hear from Spain that those two things are occurring simultaneously. Anna, without putting you too much on the spot, you did allude to some of the challenges and some of the learnings from previously. Can you talk a little bit about what you feel the main challenges that the European Commission, particularly HERA, face when we refer to design and implementation of push and pull incentives?
So I think that our challenges are really the challenges that member states and industry face. So just on this, I think that it was very good, a series of workshops that we organized with industry, and member states were also there. That was really trying to see how we can break barriers to bring innovative medical countermeasures to the market. So in this, as the main outcome of this series of workshops, it is for all medical countermeasures, but I think that it is really applicable to AMR, where really the main challenges were predictability. This is the first time that is mentioned in this session, I think, that everybody agrees. Transparency and the need for flexibility. So on predictability, what we are trying to do, and this was also part of the MCM strategy, is we are going to put forward MCM roadmaps. So MCM roadmaps are going to be strategic documents that identify where are the gaps in the different, in the end-to-end process that I presented. And for AMR, we will prepare a roadmap on carbapenem-resistant Enterobacteriae. So the idea is that this will be the prototype of the whole AMR, and we will identify where are the gaps that in most cases will need to be supported financially. We are not going to put a financial tag to give that much predictability, but for us, I think that it is important that at least industry member states, which are also part of this discussion, know where the main gaps are. And this is also linked to the new multi-annual financial framework in the Commission, where you probably have seen that the Commission has put forward several funds. One of them is the European Competitiveness Fund that should be able to fund some of this, the main innovation, targeted innovation that we will see in the future. And we also will have other more specific funds for health security, like the HER fund, that is the Health Emergency Response, that is part of the UCPM. And this fund will also try to tackle big problems that are not really linked to competitiveness, but to preparedness. So that's for predictability. Sorry, I was a little bit long. For transparency, I think that I mentioned in the previous talk, but what we really want is to get closer to member states and closer to the industry, so that we are really understanding the problems from the very beginning, and we know where the products are in the pipeline. And this is, we're going to have an initiative by the end of the year that is called Ramp Up, where we are going to do this kind of database, matchmaking, where we can have all the information that we need. And then finally, on the flexibility, we are trying to find innovative funding mechanisms. For this, we have put together the MCM accelerator, which is intended to really see, for each product or for each category of products, which are the best interventions to be, targeting the specific challenges that we identify. In the realm of pool incentives, we see that the main challenges is really the fragmented market, that there are different epidemiological situations in different countries, that the access rules are different in different countries. So we will have to take this together. But for us, it is very important that push and pull incentives are together, so that we don't forget about the push incentive. So every initiative that we will put will have to, contemplate these two parts, taking into consideration that there's no one solution that fits all, which is our main challenge.
That's
Sorry,
great.
it was a
Good
little
to
bit
hear,
long.
not at all. Good to hear about the end-to-end sort of connected thinking, because it's often very difficult in this space. And I know this, Luca, this is something we've discussed a lot, this balance between predictability and flexibility. It's a topic that comes up a lot, right? Like, what is that balance between providing the certainty, but we're all learning with these models, right? So where's there needs to be enough flex as we learn through the process. Right, Luca, beyond Europe, key upcoming milestones. How about the countries beyond the G7? How about the G20?
Yeah, well, just staying in Europe just for a little while longer. No, so it's what you said, right, Suzanne? This, learning curve and the importance of working together, right? And I think this year is an important year in terms of the implementation that we're talking about here, right? I think really, a pragmatic approach and a thoughtful implementation, working towards the impact that we all want to see, and that really leads to meaningful change is going to be important, but it's going to require working together, right? And that can be said for any single, I think, model. In fact, just looking a bit beyond, right? I mean, or still in European terms, but we've seen this trend since 2021, where where each country holding the G7 presidency has made some meaningful announcement or progress on their own domestic model, which was a trend started by the UK, right? This year, in the context, I think, of the implementation discussions, I would also say that France has an opportunity to play an important role in this, right? And then, interestingly, in 2 years' time, we will have gone through one full cycle of G7 presidency since the trend really started, towards this implementation, and all these conversations and different models. Hopefully, we can see, really kind of strong progress by then. But ultimately, 2029 will be the high-level meeting on AMR, and I think that is a very helpful milestone to keep in mind, right? And we are here focusing on conversations, related to the G7 and the EU in terms of kind of leading the charge on kind of these really, effective pull incentive implementation. But it is a global issue, right? And that sort of global momentum and understanding is really important. And I think, all countries should be encouraged, to and support it if they want to in contributing to addressing the solution, right? And we are seeing these conversations happen elsewhere as well. Australia is one example, Switzerland, in fact, as well, right, with ongoing conversations. But one thing that we really have to keep in mind, I think, is that there is a bit of a clock on this, right? This is something that we don't have all the time in the world to solve. Recalling back what I was explaining initially, is that there are concerns around the research workforce that can deliver this work, right? There are trends being visibly there in the clinical development pipeline. And this is what we're trying to reverse, right? But at some point down the line, even if there are full incentives in place, it may get increasingly more difficult to do unless we act urgently, right? It's not, I think, as easy as pressing an on and off switch, right, to turn things around. Or to continue using this analogy, right, the on switch is not going to work if the underlying wiring has collapsed, right? So that's why it's really, really important, right, that, continuing the progress, building on it, and really getting to a point where, things can be turned around, right, with, really strong mechanisms to support investment, to support development, and then, having this conversation in a few years' time and reflecting on all of that would be great, I think.
Yeah, I think that point about the attrition of the enabling environment is critical, right? And the quicker we act, the quicker we stem that attrition. Okay, we are very close to time, but if there are any questions from the audience, any pressing questions for our panelists, please.
Hello, Robert Maxix from Smartbucks. We're a small company developing new antibiotics with new modes of action, so I'm wondering, like, what is the plan? Who decides on who actually gets a voucher if there is like more than 5 companies or more than 5 approaches qualifying within those 15 years? Like, we expect to be market ready in 8-9 years, and I'm wondering how much can I bet on the voucher, or will they all be gone? Or like, who decides in the end which is innovative enough to grant a voucher?
Who would like to take that? Perhaps Alexandra, please.
Yes, yeah, I can take that. Listen, I think it's a fair question, but what I want to say is that the legislation has basic conditions, right? So you will see that we have specific conditions, what kind of priority antimicrobials they will be eligible to get the voucher. Then, of course, we need to work closely with the European Medicines Agency, probably also with ECDC, to have epidemiological data and to choose the best candidates. Because as I said, we really want to have the best breakthrough antimicrobials, in particular antibiotics, available through the Europe. So this is a very fair point. However, at this stage, I think it is very difficult to tell you right away because we will take into consideration different elements. But what I really would like to stress is that legal framework provides specific conditions, what kind of antimicrobials are eligible for this kind of a reward. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandra. And just to follow up on that, the Hub did an analysis that actually looked at how the different models are defining eligible products, and they're largely similar. The difference generally tends to be quite small and comes down to sort of linguistic differences in general. So largely there's global agreement on what we need, and that work has largely been led by WHO. I saw another hand. Adnan, would you like to go ahead, and perhaps the organisers will let us run over a couple of minutes.
Thank you. Adnan Ganchi from AMR. Even in the best case scenario with the voucher, we still in Europe will be far off our fair share of contributions towards AMR pull incentives. And with the Pasteur Act back in contention, it looks like that there's a chance that America might reach its fair share, and the UK is already reaching its fair share. So that's the context of it. Outside of the voucher, there's the pull incentive subscription model, and the medical countermeasure strategy itself talks about a toolbox approach to reaching fair share or having enough incentive on the table. What does that look like for you guys in terms of creeping that number up?
So, as I said before, now we are in a transition mode. So we really need to focus on the implementation of the legislation, and we will have to see what are the criteria for this subscription model, and then we can see what we really can do. So for us, the pull incentive still on the table. The legislation defines this subscription model linked to joint procurement, of course, but there's no limitations for us to put in place another kind of pull incentives. This is just that the problem that we have limited resources, and we need to see what are the priorities. But this is what we are trying to discuss with member states and with industry. So just to try to make up our mind, but the first part is really, as Alexandra said, the main point now is to really ensure that these guidelines are there, that we have further information on how member states see this being implemented, and then we take it out from there.
Thank you. We are a couple of minutes over. Oh, please, Alexandra.
Sorry, if I may just complement what Anna just said, because I slightly disagree with the person who raised this question about the fair share, because we did extensive impact assessment and studies about this, and I encourage you to have a look. It is publicly available that calculates the specific share that Europe should pay. Therefore, of course, from industry perspective, you would like to have more, or there are different elements that you take into consideration. However, I think for the voucher, and now what the Commission, together with DG HERA, what we are doing, I think we are providing really a fair European share to boost development of antimicrobials. I just wanted to stress this, that really we did an enormous study on this, and it's available, publicly available. So in case somebody did not see it, I encourage to read through. Thank you.
I see that you're still holding the microphone, Adnan. Would you like to come back, or?
Yeah, I think we have read those studies. I think I guess we'll see, and there's a 2-year kind of review of the voucher, what the real worth of the voucher ends up being, because there is lots of scenarios in which this could play out. So, like you said, it's a kind of an implementation phase where we figure out what's going to happen in the next 2 years, and we'll kind of watch and waiting. But it's probably worth having these conversations early and seeing what will happen in all these different scenarios, and even IFPMA, what kind of industry can do to help, and what the predictive things that we can think about early, I think.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, just real quickly from my side as well, right? So, there is this component of, evaluating for impacts that you also mentioned that is going to be important, right? I mean, we've talked about previously on the needs as we see them, right? In terms of, how to, size pull incentives, which, again, going back to the also previous discussions on fair share, right? And the proportionate contributions from G7 and the EU aligned with GDP, right? For the EU, that does come at about 1.4-ish, right, USD billion on average. It is again, the evaluation part of the impact is going to be quite important, right? But it is a number that, has been discussed in many different places and quite extensively, right? And is based on research done over the last couple of years. Right, and that speaks directly, I think, to the principle of effectiveness that I outlined earlier in the conversation.
Fantastic. We're really running out of time, but maybe I could ask all of our panelists to give perhaps just one sentence takeaway that you'd like to leave the room with today. Alexandra, perhaps you would be willing to go first?
Absolutely. I think we are really, I want to pass the message that we are reaching the exciting times because of the implementation, and let's try to work together in order to have really a successful story of this. So other jurisdictions can take forward similar tools. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandra. Anna?
So I would repeat a little bit what Alexandra said. I would just say that from my point of view, we are getting there. And that we are really committed, the Commission is really committed to this endeavor, and that we really need you, so we really hope that we can collaborate very closely with you.
Final words from Luca.
I think, great progress in the last couple of years. The only thing left to do is to build on that and really bring it to completion, right? Acting for impact, acting at scale, and then, hopefully ushering in a new era of R&D activity for antibiotics.
Fantastic. And thank you to all the panelists today and for everybody who attended.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Greetings from Brussels.